I was trying to figure out where were you picking up your knowledge and skill set, and it seems like some of it was organic. It was the guys on the crew that invested in you and thought, hey man, it's worth trying to teach this person how to not be an idiot.
Right. I am an honest to God believer that leadership is one of those traits that's inherent in your bloodstream when you're born.
You think
you got it or you don't got it, right?
Interesting.
Now there are leaders out there that had to learn it. And there is a skill to being a leader, to being a mentor. But when you grow up in the environment that I did with a father that was a highly decorated Army officer, First Armored Division, 191st Tank Battalion, fought his way across North Africa into Italy, Sicily, Monte Cassino, just brutal battles, and in Anzio, and on the breakout from Anzio to Rome was where he was wounded. Dad's training and skill, education, it effused from his body. I mean, it was something that you could just genuinely tell that
he was an inspirational person.
He was an inspirational person. And when you're around that, you just glean it. You learn it. You
soak it up, sponge.
Soak it up. You're like a sponge, right? Well, I always wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be my dad. I wanted to be that person that's respected. I wanted to be that person that is a pillar of a community. I wanted to have the love and affection that my father had to other people. So you say, well, how'd you learn to be a leader? Well, that's how I learned to be a leader.
Started at home.
Started at home.
And then was refined over the time.
And I always feel so bad for folks who come from broken homes or from homes that aren't necessarily happy places to be. Now, those are the ones, if they are going to become leaders, they have to learn it. And they're different.
Because they're not exposed or immersed in it.
Yeah, but their style of leadership is different, you can tell.
Yeah, they're more abrasive.
A little bit. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? So I after the Navy, I knew I was a little anxious coming up to the end of my naval career. I didn't know what I was going to do next.
What was the anxiety from? Because that's what we're dealing with most with the transitioning veterans.
Yeah. I think it's the fear of the unknown.
Because you've been doing the same, been
doing the same thing for 26 years. And you just...
Was it hard for you?
Going to have to find a new niche. No, it wasn't. Because I was lucky, again, to land at Sonalist and work with some brilliant people and good mentors like Bill Thorne, John Demline, Chip Dye, Bob Banker.
Were you
Funny thing about working with Bob Banker, the first project I landed was heavyweight torpedo. And it was the new Mark 48 and torpedo. And we wrote the curriculum for it. And Bob Banker was sort of the project manager for that. Well, as it turns out, Bob was also a reserve commander and would fill in for Paul Scott, the commanding officer at NSSC, Naval Submarine Support Center, where I was the command master chief. So Bob and I knew each other before I went to Sonalist.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And we would do meetings and staff meetings and captain's mass together and stuff.
So when you were getting ready to get out, though, because it's different. Like I went in and I came out. Those that have been in for more than 20 years, you tend to have like a retirement of some kind. So you know that, you're going to get out and you have something. It's just, what do I want to do next? That anxiety that you had, was it because you were looking for the next 26-year thing? Were you looking for?
No, I didn't know how much time I wanted to do it. I was young. I was 46, 47 at the time. And as they say, the world's your oyster, So my retirement was in June of 2006, and I knew that I had landed a job at Sonalist in February.
So this is before the market correction of 2008, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, this collapse of the secondary lending market.
Yeah, and then the sequestration came in right around 2014, 2013. But so 2006, I landed the job at Sonalist and went on terminal leave and actually started to work at Sonalist before I was retired from active duty.
What percentage of you senior NCOs that have all this immense training, what percentage of them do you think stay within orbit around these bases and work for these contractors?
A lot. I think a lot.
So that's what I'm trying to fix, right? And that's why I wanted you to be here, right? Because how many sailors do you think you touched over the course of your career?
I can't even begin to tell you a number. I can't quantify it. Thousands. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know that I am the very least special thing out there, so there's probably a ton of other sailors that you've
special. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the captain told me so while standing in front of his freaking table with a green cloth. I'll say this. For all the brain damage I caused you guys, on the ship, there had to have been some funny stories, though. I mean, you guys couldn't have all been like, God damn it, old Phil got brought back. There at least had to be some funny stuff.
Yeah, we took some liberties at your expense that you didn't know about,
My story that I tell people is the missing movement story.
Oh.
And Chevy Brown, I look on the ship, and he's on the top side, and he looks at me and he goes, you...
Chevy, if you're listening to this, he referred to this story last night during dinner, and I hadn't laughed so hard in my life.
So this is the story.
I had forgot the story.
So this is the story. There were some people that took me out and made sure I had too many drinks. And those people, some of them look like you and people like you.
But I made movement. I was there. I knew when to stop.
Well, that's because you're more, you're smarter, and I'm just a dopey, whatever.
Seasoned veteran.
So I don't make it to the ship on time, and I get to the pier just in time to hear toot toot, and I look, and the boat's not at the pier, and I'm like, that's never good. Mm-hmm. Boat's moving down the Thames, right? And I'm like,
no, we were moving down the Piscataqua.
Birthing ship or something. It was a birthing slip.
Birthing shift, yeah.
And I remember going, I'll just run to that pier and see if they notice. And I'm walking in the pier, and I see Chevy Brown. The boat hasn't even hit the pier yet, and he never was a big O'Fell fan. I don't think there was a lot of guys in khakis that were big O'Fell fans. And I remember he looks at me and he does the whole thing like this. And if you knew him, you knew that he meant everything that he said. And it was a Friday. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really in the business of getting arrested on Fridays. So I'm leaving the pier and I'll come back on Monday and take my medicine like anybody else would. And I remember it was Baldwin, some like first class, or maybe he was a chief by then.
Yeoman.
And he's walking on the pier and he made me stop. And that's when, I get on the boat. You must have said a word to Commander Kelly, the XO.
Yeah.
There's no way that I should have not gotten reprimanded in a really bad way, but I assume that you block and tackled for me for that one. So, but I was a good soldier. I'm like, look, man, if you guys look out for me, I'll work 20, 30 hours straight for you guys all day, every day. I didn't give a shit what you guys put on my shoulders. Just don't get me in trouble for being fun. I was just having fun. I was just a fun sailor.
Is that what you call that?
You guys probably were. I bet you back in the day you were just as bad, if not worse.
No.
Oh, shit. I don't believe that.
No.
No?
I never missed movement.
Oh, I didn't miss movement. It was a birthing shift. There's a difference.
Same thing. Same thing, knucklehead. And then I never went to captain's mast.
I wasn't technically at mast. It was more like a stage simulation just to intimidate me.
It was a bona fide, no shit.
It was not on my record. No.
Don't argue with me.
All right. So I don't remember it like that. I choose to remember things I like more than others.
You choose to think of things the way you choose to.
But you've had a huge influence over a lot of sailors, and it's not just me. And now how many people do I get to try to influence what we do? And what I try to do is take what you guys gave me. Like someone said something to me once. I'm like, hold on, let me just stop you right there. I don't originate anything. I just regurgitate, these things that people, find worthy of sharing with me. And I try to keep hold of those things and find the appropriate time to share them with others. And I'm like, it's not like I sit around like some philosopher and I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm like, oh, I remember being yelled at and they told me this.
Again, you go and say yelled at. We weren't yelling. We were emphatically trying to impress you on something that you needed to understand.
Right? You say those things because that's what Master Chiefs, that's the language they speak. Like I really enjoyed earlier when you're talking about how Dave Brooks and Johnson, I had a good relationship with them. Mm-hmm. And what you meant was they would beat my ass.
I wasn't going to say that. Listen, I want people to understand that the people that are listening to this podcast, I want them to understand.
They weren't nice.
that there was no hazing.
Oh,
right?
there was none.
There was none.
I brought it on myself.
You did. So,
but that's all they had.
Technically, Kirk was his own worst enemy when it came to that stuff.
I don't think anybody listening is going to have a hard time.
You can't pick up a hydroblaster and squeeze somebody in the face with a hydroblaster. You just can't do that. It'll take the skin off their head.
I didn't realize that, but it seemed really funny at the time. It didn't seem funny when
Horseplay will get you sick bay.
Hey, listen, I couldn't do my laundry on that ship for 2 weeks.
You were scared.
I couldn't go to certain parts of that submarine.
You were shaking like a dog shit in Peach Pits. You were scared.
Yeah, because those guys would knock me out, like flat out.
They were big boys.
Listen.
Dave did my pig roast for my retirement.
All I know is that Dave's arms were so big they had to custom make his uniforms.
Yeah, he's a big guy. He was my chief of the watch for a while.
He was awesome. He was on my board. So I remember when I got failed, I mean, this guy's a monster of a man, as you know, and I just remember being, it's impossible. You know, I'm like, how the fuck? And I just remember Dave was the total missionary for me at that point, because he's 99% of the time the mercenary towards me. And I remember him coming to me, and that's where I saw real, pure, authentic, and genuine leadership. Is I learned that leadership isn't about telling me what I want to hear and hugging me. It wasn't about any of those things. It was giving me what I needed and not what I wanted. And
well, that's a lot
courage of
there.
The courage of leadership.
You know, so I think I alluded to it earlier. My success it's not about me; it's about you, right? And your success is my success. So, leadership is not about me. It's about the sailors that I work with. It's about the people that I work with, and I say that to this day now. Working for the company that I work for, I have a huge impact on who's working there, right? Yeah. I spend a lot of time recruiting with my HR director, Trish Arnone, down in D.C., a wonderful lady.
And you're just plucking all the senior NCOs, you're cherry picking.
We're able to really go after the veterans first, and she knows that, right? I will hire for character over experience more times than not, right? And when Rob Friedman, who's my number 2 guy at the company, you know, when we walk up and down the hallways, no, we're not looking to bring the hammer, but we're also there, you know, to say, hey, don't
You're
do
the
that.
deterrent.
Don't do that.
You're the nuclear deterrent.
Let's not do that, right? But we also give the people the opportunity, our employees the opportunity to help give us the answers that we need, right? So the product we deliver to the submarine maintenance, engineering, planning, and procurement facility, part of N7 on the shipyard, is, you know, all the maintenance documentation for the submarine fleet. So we have a lot of experienced former sailors with a lot of character and ego that can deliver a product that is top shelf. I mean, it is good stuff. Now we make a mistake here and there, but we know how to course correct for it. So we're an ISO certified company. And we have key processes and key procedures, just like you do on a submarine, right? There is a command, there is a chain of command. There is a formal way of doing the business. But we are still able to impact people, impact a deliverable to the submarine fleet, keep our hands in the fight, and keep those boats safe, going to sea and coming back.
Can you do that and contribute in that same fashion outside of the submarine community?
Oh, sure.
So that's why we're talking, right? Because
you just have to apply that knowledge different, that's all.
I think that it's a function of trying to connect 2 dots, right? So for me, I sat around and I worked amongst some of the best in the fleet. And I mean, for those that are listening that don't understand, try to think of attrition in this rate. Let's say there's 300,000 people in the Navy, arbitrary. Less than 1% of those people will become master chiefs, right? And those are the 1% that controls the fleet from the enlisted side. Now think about it from a warship perspective. How many submarines in total? Less than 75 probably?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have 75 COBs. So you have 1% of the Navy is a master chief, but only 75 people within the Navy earn the opportunity and the privilege to be a COB, a chief of the boat, right? And you know, the submarines probably represent 1/3 of all the warships and probably represent 50 to 60% of the nuclear deterrence. So there's a significant amount of responsibility that goes onto these COBs. And I operate in an industry that appreciates and values the attention to detail that we have to have in the military. It's funny because I'm in this industry that they call the mission critical vertical, and that term is subjective. It used to mean anybody that could quantify their downtime in 1 second by death or, a loss of revenue that's significant, typically within 6-7 figures. Well, we kind of come from that mission critical background too, right? As your 3-inch launcher story, your countermeasure story is, it just takes one little incident and the whole ship could go down in a second, right? So we measure our mission critical integrity on our own mortality versus downtime and a loss of revenue. So there's all these amazing people like you that are passing on the traditions, the nautical traditions of being a sailor. And like at every command you're at, you probably had, let's just say, when you're on a ship, you have probably, not when you're a cob, you got 110 people, but like 120. But think about the hundreds and thousands of sailors that you've touched and what number of them have gone on and taken those little pieces. And you didn't even know it in some cases, and they're just kind of carrying those things on. And now some of us are arriving to this part where there's a vertical of industry that not only values your background, but they need it, right? Because this industry isn't lacking genius or intelligence. There's a lot of guys that are very smart in this industry, a lot of girls in this industry that will reduce circles around us.
So when you say this industry, what industry are you talking specifically?
Mission critical, which includes, let's just call it data
Mission
centers.
critical can touch a lot of different.
Yeah, it could be hospitals. It could be broadcast stations.
Sure.
I think data centers, it's now the keyword or the keyword tricky phrase that we're trying to get to now is digital infrastructure, and it's appropriate. I mean, we evolve as an industry, so it makes sense that our terminology that we use to define this, the military is still the military, the Navy is still the Navy. Our industry is in its infancy, right? Think about every other vertical of industry that's ever been created: finance, automobile, technology, manufacturing, retail, whatever. Those have been around for a long time. Ours has been around since the first time you started using the internet. All right. So that's the genesis of our vertical. And think about how you use technology today. Think about how you used it 5 years ago. Think about how you're going to use it 1 year from now and 5 years from now. And you can't imagine that. So you don't know what the adoption rate is going to be of emerging technologies. And that all falls into what people like to refer to as the cloud. And there's a trademark by a company called CyrusOne called the Sky for the Cloud. But that's what it is. It's the home. So the space, the power, the cooling, the four walls and a roof, that all that goes into so it can island itself off the grid to make sure that every ATM transaction in North America is going to run through. And every time that you're posting on your Facebook or, downloading your boarding pass or uploading something, all of that goes into data centers. Every part of your e-commerce, all the eyeball content, video caching, that's that. And what I'm saying is we didn't join the military to make money. We did it to make a difference. And when we come out, we want to be significant. I think that you guys do too. And your significance, you felt, was to gravitate in orbit around the rest of the submarine community. And even as a civilian, you have the ability to contribute back to the fleet.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm trying to find more of the legend, like the OGs of the submarine community, and be like, look, yes, I was not a Master Chief. I wasn't even anything. But my thing is this: I learned from you guys and took that into the civilian fleet and tried to apply that. And what I found was the things that you gave me was maybe an advantage.
Applicable.
Well, not only that, but I've stumbled into an industry that experience doesn't matter for dog shit. It's like a banana, because we reinvent ourselves more aggressively than any other industry because of every other industry. If you're automobile industry, well, cool. Guess what cars are doing? They're becoming high performance computers, and they're just getting more powerful as we get older, as we want more features as consumers. So think about the way technology is being adopted in every vertical, the way that you do banking and healthcare, and it all falls back to a data center. Our industry is growing more aggressively than any other industry on earth. I'm not saying it's recession proof, but it does create the home for all porn, which seems to be recession proof, right? So what I'm saying is, why wouldn't we take these amazing people that have been pressure tested in the most crazy and dangerous ways and then say, hey, listen, can I sprinkle some of that over here? Because you self-imposed this thing where you're like, I got experience in this, I'm going to stay here. And I'm like, no. This industry doesn't lack genius. It lacks the courage of leadership, right? Which is, I will go tell somebody upstream just as much as downstream what I have to do based on my conviction and what's right. And that doesn't exist in some places, and it needs to be taught. And I think that there's some companies that get it and some that don't. I think there's some that get it because it's window dressing and it's virtuous for them to be able to check a box on ESG or D&I. But there are some companies that realize that I could go hire veterans and give them a purpose, and they will they'll work really hard to make sure the mission is successful, and they will play with the team because they understand all those things you just said. There's still a chain of command. There's still a hierarchy. There's a process of doing work MLPs, SOPs, and processes and protocols that we follow, and we have respect for X, Y, and Z. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, we're selfless enough to know that the mission and the command come first, not us. And that pencils pretty efficiently when you have people that traditionally are trying to commoditize themselves into a bake-off to figure out I'm going to go work for the highest bidder all the time. And I'm like, not us. Give me a better purpose and I'll stay here forever. Right? So you helped create these spins and cycles. And I'm like, why are we aggregating and sending all of our best talent, our senior NCOs that go to all these crazy training? Like, why are we sending them there when they really need to be sprinkled around another part of the industry where I think it's you maybe not realizing the impact that you guys have already made or will continue to make through us, but the ones that you could continue to make directly. Like, look at last night, I'm sitting there having dinner with you guys and I'm still being taken to school because you just were like, hey, I have something to say. And did you not notice you could hear a pin drop, right? Those guys were like, look, like you said, some people have leadership skills. I wasn't
sure it's because their eyes were rolling back in their head and they were like, no, not this again.
They're like, just as long as I don't have to listen to Kirk. But now what you were saying.
And I had an interesting fireside chat later that evening out in the fire pit with Sam and John and who I greatly admire.
Well, whatever they may have said about me is bullshit. No, those guys are chronic liars.
They were spot on. But they said, we've heard this before, and it doesn't necessarily use the same words, but hey, thank you for talking to us.
Sure.
And I didn't have any agenda when I started talking to you.
Yeah, that's what you guys do. You just radiate fucking knowledge, and then we just have it's on us to pick it up.
I felt it was important. By the way, that the dinner last night was incredible. The beef was just terrific. But anyways, at least I digress. Being able to talk with the assembled 12 or 13, 14 people that were there, I thought it was important for them to hear how I felt about what you're doing and how important it is. We as a collective group have to continue to try to help the veterans.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether they're the disabled veteran that's got some stuff going on upstairs. But if you give them a purpose. 3
suicides in the last month within the orbit.
Yeah, so that's really, one is too many, right? And, I don't care if the number's 22, if it's 17, if it's 15 or whatever. A friend of mine, one of my best friends growing up, BJ, Brad Bumgardner, he started doing this push-up challenge. So 22 push-ups every day. Sometimes he does more.
It's 22 kills.
22 kill. Right, one tribe. So I've started to try to do it. And then trying to get this grossly out of shape 63-year-old body back to doing push-ups. I don't necessarily do 22 at a time. But I'll do 22 sometimes during the day. I'll get 22 in.
They'll get done one at a time.
Might be between
22 sets of one.
Yeah, 22 sets of one. Right. So, but it's important that we keep that suicide, the travesty of this. It's awful, and it's so gut wrenching that it even has to happen, and it's unnecessary. To keep that in the forefront of people's knowledge, people's minds. Be aware, the awareness of it,
That's
and ask yourself, what can I do to help prevent that? You're not going to be able to stop it, but it is.
You can try.
You can try, and I am all for trying.
That's it. I mean, I'm not trying to slow it down. I'm trying to stop it.
Yeah.
I think the only way to stop it is to offer these people a meaningful purpose when they leave the military, so that they have another tribe, because they obviously didn't do it when they were in because they felt safe. They felt like they were doing something significant. They were getting the support they needed.
It's interesting, when I listen to Jake talk, Jacob.
Jake Schick.
Yeah, good guy.
Savage of a man.
I want to meet him.
Well, I'll make sure you do because he's one of the most inspirational people.
And I want to meet Jesse too. But, Jake said a couple things that resonated with me when he was talking about how he got his One Tribe Foundation started. And it is readily apparent to this Master Chief that whether you're an airman, a Marine, or a sailor or whatever, there is a different mentality to how they approach business, right? One might be really hardcore, one might be not so hardcore, right? But no matter, the end result is still we care about our brothers and sisters.
Sure do.
Right? Just as much as I cared for young Seaman O'Fell coming up through the ranks, and I care about the guys and girls that work with me at the company I work for now. They are my tribe. They are my people. And I think they understand that. And I also know that my number 2, Rob Freeman, and my other 2.5, Mike Chase, Big Mike, they're as passionate about getting the job done right the first time, but making sure that people have the tools to do what they need to do, but also making sure that our family is good, right? We are a family. So in that workplace, we will bend over backwards to make sure our people have what they need to get the mission completed, but to also have a good work-life balance. So they're happy at work, they're happy in their life. If they're not, we can figure out how to get them help. So that, it's not much different, Kirk, than being in the Navy.
I agree. And that's my point, Master Chief.
So it is...
There's no difference. No. So what I'm trying to say, and I think you're saying it too, is why, okay, first of all, we're dealing with a force that has been pressure tested and conditioned through a program that's been institutionalized called the military. And we all go through basic. And in doing that, we get conditioned and trained on how to bring value to whatever command we go to immediately. We have no experience when we get there. We're not coin operated. We're purpose driven. Mm-hmm. We're no different when we leave the military, right? We know that there's opportunities that we are going to have to grow, and we're going to not have experience. We all start from somewhere, but we should be able to go have zero experience, report to a submarine, and be able to drive and be a chief of the watch or whatever the hell you want to do. You should be able to do that. And this industry allows for that like no other industry I've seen since I've left the military. And it's like the best kept secret. There's a huge influx of military here in spite of ourselves, not intentionally designed around it. But now I'm like, why are we not doing this more, knowing that the industry is very short? They love Navy. They love Air Force. I personally think that the construction arms and units are better served by Army and Marine Corps because the emotional range that they're pressure tested to. Ours are much more linear. Like we're going through MOPs and SOPs. You have a career based on writing things to make sure people don't die. Those manuals were written in blood in the first place, right?
Right.
Construction programs are much like combat, where they're like, we all have a plan until someone punches us in the face and we start this project and then your vendor drops transformers off the back of the truck and then this.
And then what else goes sideways that causes it to fail?
And
communication, right?
Well, everything.
There is no plan A. Plan A
begins and ends with comms, right?
Yes, right.
But there's a lot of people that are being trained on how to go in and adjust and develop and acclimate quickly and bring value without having to have experience. And this industry has huge needs and they don't want to lower the bar. I'm like, you don't have to, but you don't have to lower the bar for college or high school graduates or folks coming from the trade. Just take these people like you who could be parachuted into any data center company right now. And they could be like, what we need you to do is fix this team. Doesn't matter if that's the team that's in charge of building the projects or operating the projects or doing the HR, the finance, the payroll. You're not an expert at that anymore. You're an expert at bringing teams together, figuring out what's not working, diagnosing that in a triage environment in real time, and then fixing it on the fly with limited resources to make sure that everybody's singing from the same sheet of music. that is something that you learn through being part of a traditional fleet. Submarine community is very tight, and you guys train a lot of people. I see the footprints of people, but they also intentionally design training up to 12 weeks at a click for people like that, to where now it's very intentional. It's like just go in and get the most productivity and output you can from these resources. And the most important resource we have is the human resource, right? So that's where I think the senior NCOs do the best job at controlling the culture.
Right.
And I think that pencils better, right? I think at the end of the day, that makes a company more economically efficient when we're not going into each other's pockets because of pride and ego, making more mistakes because we're not engaging with each other more. You get it?
I get it. Yeah.
And that's the value. But how do we take those people that are pocketed and say, hey, let me introduce you to this industry that you didn't even know existed? Have you ever heard of data centers before we talked?
Well, sure, but I'm not to the extent that I know now.
Okay.
You know, and I think I told you on the way over here that, you know, I work in, what is a data center? You know, we talked briefly about, you know,
I love those questions.
How do we explain what you do in the data center realm, and what's your team doing? And so you sort of started to explain it to me. Then we got vectored off on another conversation.
Squirrel.
Yep. But
it's the pappy.
Could be. But you're the worst one for getting off subject. You really, come on. Can you focus?
Poor training, victim of poor leadership.
Go back to what you were saying. I still do that every day at work.
What's that?
Make sure the team's right.
Sure.
If we're not operating right, what do I got to do? What do me and Rob and Mike, Tim Bassett, our vice president of Northeast operations, what
it's
do
a
we
heavy
have to
burden,
do?
you know.
It is, but sometimes we have to sharpen our pencils. Sometimes we have to make a decision that doesn't sit right with us. Maybe we got to let somebody go. Maybe we missed the mark on this person. But 9 times out of 10, the situation's correctable. The ship's not getting underway, right? And there's not going to be some sort of disaster at the end of the road. What we try, and the disaster that could possibly happen is if something happened to one of our boats. So the product we put out, we focus our energy on making sure that product is 100% right.
Safe.
Yeah, it's safe. And those boats operate at peak performance, and they operate with a crew that's well-trained, and they operate with a crew that can do the maintenance that they need to do in order to stay safe. You know, and every morning I get up.
No different than what we need in our industry.
In your industry now. What makes me get out of bed in the morning and have the drive to go to work every day is the fact that I know I still have my hand in the fight.
Yeah.
I know how important that is. I
feel the same, but I feel like I'm doing it from the fleet side now. Like you're doing it from the fleet side too, but I'm like, I'm ready when you're ready to leave the fleet. Let's find a way to make sure that you don't hurt yourself. Sure. And look, turns out there's people that really value what you have. And I've learned that rank, rate, branch don't even matter.
Nope.
Like there was a time where, we hosted a conference in San Diego last week. Is our first, it may be the very first hiring conference that I've ever heard of in our industry.
Hiring heroes in transition.
Heroes, yeah, Operation Hit, Heroes in Transition.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
We're just getting started. And listen, shout out to all the sponsors of that event that showed up knowing that they were the first one through the wall. So it was the bloodiest. It was like my first DCAC where nothing went right. I had, everything's chaos. And these people were just, like, I got to tip my hat to Sam Huckabee, the COO of Vantage Data Centers, who showed up and had every reason to be upset with us and said, Kirk, we got to work these kinks out, man. We got to help these veterans out. And, he sends me this email and he's like, I want my team to do everything they can to do right by these veterans. He's not a veteran. He has veterans in his blood, but he's like, look, we need them and they can help us. And if I can do what I have to do for my business and still help the veteran community, I'm in. And, I had some amazing people there. Like, this is a company that was our title sponsor, MCIS, Mission Critical Interior Solutions, and it's ran by a former Army guy. We started our companies about a month apart. And look, when you start your companies 3+ years ago, it's not like you're monster companies, but we're still throwing everything we got. He's just as purpose-driven as me, and he's former Army combat medic, and he's like, we have to do more. And I'm like, listen, I love this industry. I love building data centers, and we are in the coolest industry ever. But helping the veterans is better.
It's an admirable endeavor that you've undertaken. So, my question to you is, how can I help? And I think I have become part of your team since I've been here just by
For sure.
talking with you today. And I've become a part of your team just by being able to talk to your team last night.
That was awesome, by the way. I really appreciate that.
And I had no intentions on barging in like that, but I did. I wasn't barging in.
It's just leadership.
The timing was right.
Perfect.
And the reason I came downstairs this morning while you were having your meetings is I could hear you talking. And I said, I got to go save him.
Now you know why I really
got to save him.
I've hit a fucking plateau, Max. You got to help me figure out how to do this.
You started circling around the same hole, and I was like,
thank God these people have grace with me.
But
right?
they have a lot of patience. But
well,
it's
we're all going through it together. We're all learning together.
Yeah, it really boils down to the passion. And I think I said that last night. I could sit there and feel the passion from those people sitting at that table because they believe in what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, only like less than 1/2 of my whole team now is military.
Right.
It's awesome because like the ones that aren't, they think, act, and they operate just like us. They're paramilitary in their mindset. And this is kind of in many ways, I think, the way that they view themselves giving back since they didn't serve.
Yeah.
And they are. They're 100% changing the souls of veterans that are transitioning. So like this industry is it's the Wild West for careers. Look at me, right? I mean, I'm a blind man.
Wild West. No, I'm the blind man.
But listen, you saw me as a junior sailor. It's not like look, I wish I could say that if you saw me in San Diego last week, you would have been very disappointed, Master Chief. But I had fun and I didn't get in trouble. My thing is, I was celebrating the lives that we were trying to change. I think that day we had like 27 people get verbal offers. And I'm like, that's 27 people that are more likely to succeed and thrive.
I heard that in the meeting. So I was sitting upstairs and sound travels up that staircase pretty readily, right?
Especially when it's my voice.
Yeah, well, it's harmonious. So I was listening to what you were saying and some of the feedback that you were getting from the team. It was good feedback. I mean, you don't get into a group think, all right? Agreement, decision by committee isn't necessarily a good thing, okay? And I've been in those situations before, and I learned that don't do that, right? You have to have some independent freewheeling. You got to have somebody that's going to give you some feedback that you don't necessarily want to hear, but don't take it the wrong way. And I have a bad temper.
I like how you're talking like this Eddie Haskell version of you because people are like, I like this. That's a very Master Chief thing. They must teach you media.
I mean, I don't think I've let the animal, the monster out of the box in a while, only because people have told me that's not pretty. Don't do that.
No, but those ass chewings I had were necessary sometimes.
But in the line of business I'm in now, you don't need that.
Yeah.
Right. We have some pretty senior people. We have some pretty junior people too, but you don't do that in the workplace.
Sure.
That's just uncalled for. So we have a lot of meetings. God, I feel like when I go to work, it's a death by meeting. But they're important, So on Monday mornings, we have what's called the M4, Monday Morning Management Meeting, M4. But you have the executive leadership from the company on the team's meeting, and then you have the Northeast region, Tim running the meeting. He's the executive vice president of Northeast region. Then you have me, the senior program manager. And then you work your way down the line to Mid-Atlantic, and you have Mr. George Shervanek, and Adam Owens talks, and we talk everything from soup to nuts about what's going on with the contracts and what's going on with the company, what's good, what's bad, And if there is some things that are bad that need to be corrected, this group of people can sort of help figure that out. So then Tuesday or Monday afternoon, we'll have the Dover staff meeting, and that's where we get the leadership of the Dover office, Dover, New Hampshire office, in a boardroom, executive boardroom, and we talk about, we run down the list with with Tim, who chairs the meeting, about what's going on in Dover office, right? And then we talk about finance, we talk about budget, we talk about hiring, we talk about everything from who's doing good, who's doing bad, where do we got a problem, what do we got to do to help them. But you always have that feeling of family first. It is that group of people in the Dover office, the 84 people that work in that 16,500 square foot facility up there. It's an old mill building.
How many people in that are military, former military?
About 95%.
So they get it.
Yeah.
I'm battling a different community where it's the opposite, where you have 25% get it because they're military, and the other 3 out of 4 this is completely uncomfortable to me.
So, and then the other part of the employee that's in the mix are former shipyard engineers. So they have submarine experience.
Okay, but
they know the military, they know the vernacular,
and they've been immersed. They understand what's going on.
But they haven't had active duty. Like Peter Chorbis,
he gets it.
My program manager, task managers, he gets it. He's been a mechanical engineer for many, many, many years, and he came actually, I think, out of the medical supply field. But he's got one of the bigger technical groups of mechanical engineers. And then Barry McShane, who is a fairly new senior program manager at the company, is handling maintenance planning, engineering analysis, material support, logistics, and availability work planning. So, and he was an officer on the USS California.
So you have a lot of.
And he was also the OIC of a small riverine unit out in San Diego. So he gets it, and a lot of our younger mechanical engineers.
Maybe that's why they gravitate towards that.
They gravitate towards Barry. He makes sure they're doing the right thing. He makes sure they're taken care of.
We need to go shake shit up, and you're going to have to help me. All right. So that's great. But saturating one company with all that talent, not that I want to dilute their talent, but I'm like, my industry is starving for great people, and you and I are the ones that drive the growth of this industry. We as the consumers of technology. And the number one challenge to the growth of my industry is not innovation. It's the labor that's used to bring these visions to life. And we just can't find enough talent. And that shortage of talent grows by the year. We're getting ready to face what we call the silver tsunami. So that's where we have 48, I think it is, percent or 45% of our workforce has been in the industry for more than 20 years. And you got to remember that this industry started, not that much longer than that.
The gray hairs are leaving.
And with that is the wisdom, the knowledge, the guidance, the bodies are buried.
It starts a vacuum. There is indeed a vacuum that occurs. We're going through the same thing now. We are losing senior people with tons of experience. When sometimes people, God, that guy's going to walk out the door, and what are we losing?
Yep.
Well, you strive to find the replacement.
The succession planning has to begin soon.
And Tim talks about succession planning all the time.
Uh-huh.
What are we going to do when such and such leaves?
100%.
Where's the backup? So we've been lucky enough to find those retired engineers out of the shipyard or submep or other areas that work in the submarine community, engineering, not necessarily active duty, but we were able to get them to come in and sort of
so they're being backfilled by the fleet.
Backfill that tsunami of talent that's leaving because we're look.
It's mutually accretive. Then you guys are engaging with the fleet, and then you're self-feeding yourself from the fleet.
Yeah, I can't say that I have, and I won't say this, but I have an elderly workforce, right? I say that lovingly. What I have is a mature workforce, but some of these guys and girls are getting to the point of
they don't have to work anymore.
Near term separation, near term see ya, I'm gone. So we have to plan for that. So when we look ahead, like when Trish Arnone, our HR director, and I talk, or we talk in these department head meetings or whatever you want to call it, Dover staff meetings, we're talking the succession plan. What are we going to do? Let's not. And, you're also faced with a recompete coming up. We got to recompete the contract. The contract's only a 5-year contract. So sooner or later,
you may lose that contract.
We may lose that contract, and some other prime contractor is going to come in and take the reins. May not be the company that's working there now. Maybe it will be, and I hope it is, right? So you plan for that, but it's a succession plan. And this silver tsunami that you're speaking of is a frightening thing.
It's a real thing.
It is.
And right now, we can't get people coming out of high school that we could train fast enough through the trades. We can't get people coming out of college that have enough.
So do you?
So the military.
So when you do get a
place.
veteran that's coming out or prime candidate like these boys and girls coming in from San Diego that you were able to make offers to last week. So do you, if they need the skill, do you send them to the school or how's that work?
Yeah, fair question. That is a really good question. So yeah, the first thing we filter through is like the character side.
Mm-hmm.
You can teach anybody, these things, but you can't teach them to not be pieces of shit. So we try to figure out which ones actually have, the way that you can do that is to try to peel them back to understand what matters most. Some people actually know what their purpose is. Like if I were to say, I know what your purpose is, I could codify it with one word. I don't know if you can, but being on the outside looking in, it's easier than you on the inside looking out. My thing is trying to sit down and like qualify these people and understand what matters most to them. Is it the geography they work in, the title that they're going to do, the salary that they make, the opportunity to grow? What matters? The benefits? I mean, and you just go through people, and sometimes you find people that are they're like, I just want to be able to go do cool shit with cool people and have the opportunity to like be a part of something significant again. Well, if that's all you need, then that's what I needed from you, is to literally want to go do it. And yes, we could roll out a profile that gives you, I have 2 programs. One's called the Overwatch Veteran in Transition Apprenticeship, OVITA. And OVITA means I'll take anybody. I've hired aviation boatswain's mates, damage controlmen, MPs. I do not give a shit. I've been able to prove that it does not matter what your rate was, what your rank was, or what you did in the military. As long as you have the emotional range and the aptitude to learn, then we can teach you whatever. And I mean, I got amazing people that I never interacted with their type at all when I was in the military, but I've found that they've been able to really bring value.
Right. So you get this veteran.
So we train them. We train them. We put them, it's all immersion. There's no classroom. There's no undergrad.
You don't send them to a vocational school.
There's no value in that.
You partner them up with a mentor.
We definitely do that. So they all get married to, senior PMs will attach an OVITA candidate to a senior PM, and it's beneficial because the senior PM, which has been doing things for the longest, has to teach the junior people how to do it, and in doing so, they have to kind of do it the right way and by the book, which makes it's easier for people to have bad habits and get complacent. Mediocrity is inevitable.
Let's break for this like 2 minutes because I got to do a refill here. Can we do that?
Yeah, 100%. Take a piss?
No. I just need
juice.
I need some juice. Is that all right?
Yeah, we don't have to break for that though.
Jesus.
I was like, what are we talking about here, Master?
No, I don't want to. It's just
you're getting thirsty.
I'm getting thirsty. Damn.
All you have to do is say I'm getting thirsty. I can speak that language.
Calling me.
So, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm not going to take that shit.
Do you want some of this, or you just wanted some?
Yeah, I definitely want some.
You want me to give you a pour?
If you would, kind sir.
Of course I would.
I hate to drink your Pappy Van Winkle.
Do you really hate it?
No,
I didn't think so.
No, not one bit.
I was like, no one seemed to mind.
I mean, I'm sitting here looking at this, and I'm thinking that was a gift to Kirk from his team, and
it was an awesome gift. But I can't imagine. I wouldn't have been able to earn that gift and earn the respect that I had from that team if I didn't have great people that, showed
they must
me the
like
way.
you an awful lot in order for them to give you that.
Nah, someone lost a bet probably.
Probably Sam.
So
all right.
Everything that we do in this industry is learned through immersion, in my opinion, and it's a function of trying to find the people that have the right aptitude and character. Because not everybody's designed to learn certain aspects. Some people are more in the abstract and they're better in more kinetic and dynamic environments. And some people are very linear and they're better in more static environments with a higher QA/QC. And then there's those hybrids that can operate between the two. And we need that, right? And I was able to prove that my COO and my chief strategy officer have 0 industry experience, 2 former military people. And I needed them because one is an exceptional leader and one's an exceptional strategist. And those are the skills they learned. And I said, look, I don't need any more data center experts. I just need people that know how to lead and inspire teams to get the highest level of output and productivity. And I need people that make sure that we're, putting all the right wood behind the arrow, right? So I need a strategist that's tying all these things together.
You have a way with words. Put wood behind the arrow. Where the hell?
Where do you think I learned this shit from, Master Chief?
I never said that.
No, you said things like this, right? I mean, like I said, I didn't
I
originate
think
anything.
I've said things like a bag of smashed assholes.
Oh yeah. My lexicon, I owe half of that to you being angry somewhere. I'm like, I'm learning that one. You get to sit in the control room, and I learned a whole new vocabulary in my first deployment.
Well, yeah, you do learn a whole new. Yeah, that vocabulary in the control room. I mean, especially under situations of high stress.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know what you did on your deployments. I don't want to know, and you can't say. But there were some submarines that I was on that when we were out doing what we were supposed to do, sent out to go do. Yeah, it was fun. But boy, was it stressful. I wasn't on the dirt running through, getting shot at. But
some long days though.
24, 48 straight. All the time. On your feet.
I was standing for 30 sometimes.
36.
I remember the corpsman one time touched my thighs, and he could take my pulse just by grabbing my thigh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't realize what that meant, but obviously.
But, I think being under those situations of high stress, I'm glad I had the experience. I had that opportunity to be in those situations. But I'm glad I'm not in those situations anymore. And even though...
Great place to be from, shitty place to be.
Yeah, right. So I'll joke with the people in the office. I'll say, this is not a highly fast-moving tactical situation that we're in here. We have time to figure this out. So let's figure it out.
That's emotional range, though, from being pressure tested that lets you know how to compartmentalize challenges and, what part needs to be escalated, what part needs to be addressed first. Those are the things that I learned, I think, being on a submarine is like, which ones are a pitch in the dirt that you ignore and which ones you have to address before something bad happens and it escalates. And that damage control training, maybe, I don't know but all I know is this. That's what this industry needs. This industry doesn't need another person that could do long division, right? They have those people. They need
slide rule skills.
They need people that know how to deal with shit not going right. Because when you reinvent yourself as an industry, means and methods of delivery of the product, the way that we operate and run the product, when we do that, you're reinventing yourself all the time. And what some groups are really better at is a stabilized static environment where there's no changes. Yeah. Some people do better in kinetic, where it's changing every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year. And there's just there's a place at every altitude and airspeed in this industry.
So when people are listening to this podcast, I don't want them to just hear the story behind how I got to be where I'm at and what I'm doing now, but I want them to understand that they can make a difference.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody,
even
whether it be in this industry, your industry, whether it be in my government contracting industry, if you choose to make a difference with a person, that goes a long way in helping us drive a suicide rate down. So because and it's not just that, right? It is, how good does it feel when you can help somebody? How good does it feel?
It's addicting.
It is addicting. And it's an adrenaline rush for me to know that, hey,
it's fulfilling.
It is fulfilling.
Well, so it's because it's your purpose.
I go back to saying it's not about me. It's about them. Right? And if there is a theme that this podcast has, it's that. It's not about me, Master Chief Bruce Lee.
Yeah, it's serving
about
others.
Them.
Selfless service. Right? I mean, that's what I learned.
So you can carry that to the nth degree, or you can just be consistent.
Let me say this, because we'll bring this podcast home, and I would love to know, because this podcast is going to hit my industry, and there's going to be people that don't know shit. And what I mean is this, I didn't realize this, but there are people that will be like, Laurie, man, I don't listen to the military ones as much because I wasn't in and I don't get it. And I'm like, well,
that's not what I want.
We want them to get it because they just went left when I went right. Doesn't mean they couldn't have done what I've done or served what I served. We just had someone else guiding us in a different direction. But there are some of the most amazing people. Two of my best friends in this industry have not only proven that you can do anything in this industry without having gone to college, but they're they're the most stoic and honest, almost to a fault type
Big
of
time.
people. And they care enough about me to not let me hurt myself, so they'll be the first to jump on my shit. And but it's not always roses. I mean, we'll trade paint like anybody else because we're all egos and stuff, but they're studs, they care, and they genuinely give a shit. And I think when you're like, hey, when you're getting involved with people, I'm like, I think it's just caring. I just care. And I know it's a priority. And listen, there's no industry that's more aligned to helping more veterans than this industry. There's no industry that appreciates and enjoys veterans as much as this industry. And it's the industry that's known least amongst the veteran community and those on active duty.
How that is.
But that's how you're going to help me. Because you run in that mafia of all these people, and I don't need 10. I just need you to pass one note to one that goes to the next guy that he mentored, and they go, hey, listen, if you're getting out of the military, at least let us help you find the next step. And everyone's going to look at everything else. They're going to go home, or they're going to talk to their cousin that works there. They're go to Home Depot, or they could come and join an industry where it is the Wild West. No one gives a shit where you went to college. No one cares if you were an officer enlisted. No one understands or cares what you did. They just want to know what you can do, and your EQ is more important than your IQ.
I agree. As much as I would like to tell you, hey, I wish that person that's transitioning comes to me to go work and continue on the similar work that he.
If you can't hire him, send him to me.
We're doing. But definitely, if I can't hire him,
send them our way.
Somebody that can.
That's
if
right.
They're willing.
That's it.
To move or willing to go somewhere,
they got to be hungry.
They got to be hungry, right?
You got to go want to reinvent yourself.
The other question I got for you is, and I think I heard this today in some of the meetings, where do you need these people? Not so much inside the industry, but geolocated. Where do you need them? Do you need them in, like you said, don't go to Albuquerque?
So the reason why I don't ask those questions, I don't answer these questions like this. That's a construct that I don't want to put a limitation on. We'll find a role for you.
Yeah.
There are companies that will suffer inconvenience and say, look, I'd hire you. And you're like, well, listen, man, I got a commitment. I got a contract, all these things. I'm like, cool. I don't give a shit. When you're done with that, then call me. And you're like, well, I'm up in whatever. I'm like, I don't give a shit about that either. Stop making barriers to entry.
It's not barriers.
No, I hear you. I hear you. But those are self-imposed things. I'm like, Bruce, are you okay to get on a plane every now and then?
Yeah, so I'm good with getting on a plane every now and then.
Then let's go put some points on the board. I don't need you to
But if I have to sit in a window seat with my knees up around my earlobes, I don't necessarily want to do that, every other week.
We'll get you an aisle seat.
Yeah, right. And that was the promise I had.
Maybe a medal every now and then.
And it ended up I had.
We can fix that. That's fixable. That's fixable. Logistics.
I see I just got my boarding pass and she was able to get me an aisle seat on JetBlue going back. So hopefully.
See what I'm saying? She's a rock star.
She's a rock star.
My thing is this. There is no limit, so don't make them. Don't. Where do you want them? We want them all, and the industry will find a way to make them work.
Are you telling the Master Chief what to do?
I would never do that, but I would ask you kindly if you could use your influence to.
I can support that.
I think what you need to understand is the best kept secret is this industry, and I don't want it to be a secret anymore. I know that there's a lot of us that get here, and then we just call our old shipmates. We call the guys we serve with in the Army or the Marine Corps, the Air Force, whatever, Coast Guard, and that's cool. But that doesn't move the needle, and it doesn't solve the existential threat our industry has, which is a lack of talent. And there's, you were wearing that jacket, it had the Talent War Group. You met with Carly.
Yeah.
One of the most impressive people I've.
Very impressive. I was super impressed with her.
Yeah. And I just said, I have to find a way to partner with you because we have a shared purpose. And they used to focus on Tier 1 assets and the executive development.
And she's another one that just exudes the passion for what you're doing.
I agree. She's a rock star.
And I think I spoke just briefly, and I probably shouldn't have opened my pie hole during your meeting, but
Why not?
I said, demographics. What's your demographic? And we concentrate a lot on demographic. Maybe we're
Balanced.
caught up behind that HR demographic thing.
We look at diversity for the function of diversity itself, not from a metric or virtue signaling. I need women on my leadership team because I'm a dopey dude with a blind spot and doesn't know that I should do this and instead of that.
Well, you have a lot of blind spots.
Take a number, which is why I have so many people on my leadership team. Each one represents something I suck at.
So how many total are on your leadership team?
12, 6 on the SLT. Well, the SLT is all 12. Then I have an ELT, which is the top 6.
At what point do you want to put a cap on that?
I don't know if it It scales proportionally, but that's a fair question.
Does it get to be too many eventually?
Well, we have. So I don't really participate in the senior leadership team. That's owned by my COO, former Navy guy.
Yeah.
So I'll show up to dinner.
I haven't met him.
Yeah, our dad's
He's away right
together.
now, right?
He's in Dallas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there will be a limit, but I haven't hit that plateau yet.
Yeah, okay.
And the magnitude of impact and scale is what really is most critical. And wherever there's leadership, for the record, everyone on our team, including the FNG that we just hired, I hired this lady that runs she's a marketing savage, and that's
Marley. Marley, I met today. Yeah.
This is a person that I would have never engaged with on an active duty, just because she was on a carrier. Could not be more impressed with her professionalism and her attention to detail.
Yeah. So while you were talking downstairs, she came upstairs to, I don't know, make a cappuccino or whatever. And I was sitting at the dining room table upstairs watching the pouring rain come down and lightning bolts striking all around.
Very Austinish.
Yeah, very Austinish. So she and I had a chance to, sort of join up at the hip and talk about what the other one was doing. Bar none, one of the more professionals people.
She's been with us for a few months only. And I'll come at her.
I mean,
and I'm the CEO, and she'll be like, "Settle down, princess. I got you."
That's right.
But I'm like, that's why you're hired here. But I didn't know that.
She will take no shit from you.
From me or anybody else.
Right. And that's important.
That's what we needed.
Because don't get into a situation ever where you're just nodding your head saying, yep,
I don't have any of those people.
Good. Right.
That's not what I have.
Sounds good. Yep. Where, and I do this with Tim, and he does it with me a lot. He goes, "Well, why'd we do that? What drove us to that decision?" And we'll have a very, and Rob does the same thing with me. We'll have a very heart to heart, sometimes loud conversation about what are we doing? Jesus, what are we doing? Well, why'd we do that? Okay, again, we're not in a highly fast-moving tactical situation. We got time to figure this out.
This isn't worth rotating like that.
So, right. So let's not elevate.
Yeah.
So, but having a person like Marley, Salmi.
Salmi's a rock star.
She is a rock star.
She's the South African Wonder Woman.
She is. Funny thing about that is she said she had spent time in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, how about that? 9 years.
I said, "Oh, did you live in Enola?" And she goes, "As a matter of fact, I worked in Enola for like 6 years, 8 years, 6, 8 years."
Is that where all the South Africans come?
No, that's outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is, don't ever go to Harrisburg. But anyways, at that point, I told her, well, Pennsylvania is my home state.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, really? And I told her about growing up in Clearfield. And an interesting story with her. So there was another question I wanted to ask you. So the gentleman you were talking to whenever I came downstairs, because I heard you starting to go down a rabbit hole, and I said, I got to go save Kirk, was the gentleman.
That's why you need to be here.
Right, the gentleman with...
bald head?
Yeah.
He's my chief strategy officer. He has arms like legs.
Right.
Yeah, so that's like Joe Rogan's alternative big brother. Just looks like two Joe Rogans put together.
Give me a name.
His name is actually Joe Pinzon.
Yeah, okay.
Joseph, yep.
So Joe, when he was actually talking to you, I was going through your leadership slides, and I'm like, I know this guy. Did I meet him yesterday? Because when I walked, I did.
You met him briefly.
When I walked in to the house yesterday, the compound yesterday, with Salmi after she picked me up for my flight, we stood up in the kitchen for a moment and talked, and I said, I need a beer. She got me a beer, took care of my most primal need.
Sure.
But then she said, all right, let's go downstairs. And then when I walked down the stairs, I didn't know who was going to be downstairs. And it ended up being you and...
Oh, Carly.
Right?
We were working on some whiteboards.
And that's the first time I had seen you in
20 plus years.
20 plus years, right? Now, here's the neat thing about that. That is like, that 20-year gap never occurred.
That's the
only thing I noticed about you is the gray hair. You got more gray hair. Right?
Thanks.
And now I have no hair because Kathy cuts my hair. And
and what you have is all gray.
She just goes to number 2, and it's either gray or scalp.
I get it.
Right. So, but the reconnection.
Yeah, you pick up wherever we left off.
Picked up where we left off.
We're guys who do that.
Now, I don't remember ever saying goodbye to you. Right. And I think that was intentional.
Yeah. I won't lie. I remember wondering, I'm like, God damn, that sucks, man. That dude just rolled. None of us got to say goodbye. But I was like, hey man, at the time too, I'm like, who the fuck am I? I'm an E-nothing that's just running around.
You're a very important part.
I think at that point.
Because there were days after I left the Menfish, after I left 691 Prowlers of the Deep, I thought about it. You know? But I thought about sailors like you. You know, let's see, who'd we have in our division? We had
Danny LaFleur.
Danny LaFleur, right?
The only guy that gets beat up more than me.
But he was a stud. So,
a savage.
So
human.
Danny, and then there was Eric.
Him too in a heartbeat.
Yeah, Eric, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, another awesome, he was one of the best.
And then there was you.
Yeah.
Who was the other? Was it LaForest on the boat with you?
Yeah. But we had a guy named Flash. That I don't think he went to Texas Tech, graduated. But
I don't remember.
We called him Flash because he spoke like he had a coma. You know what I'm saying? He was like, call sign.
I know what you're talking about.
But listen, we got to do this. Right. Master Chief, I could do this all day, and we're going to actually do this next. We started last night. But what's the final message, for people that you engage with a lot of former military because you run in a lot of crazy circles. What would be the message that you would send to them now that if they're listening, like, hey, if you're looking at all these options, look at this one? Or...
Yeah, so having witnessed what I have over the last day and a half, is if you're a hero in transition, if you're a veteran, if getting ready to transition into the civilian workplace, I know your anxiety is probably high. And you're anticipating a lot. And anticipation can be a numbing thing because you don't know what to expect out there. But I will tell you that there is life after the military. There is life after all that stress and all those high-stress situations that you went through. You can find a home. You can find a job that is going to give you a peace of mind, that's going to give you an honest-to-God, good, solid foundation to where people are there that can help you should you fall into harm's way. Don't be afraid to make that decision, right? What Kirk's doing and what are people like Kirk out here trying to bring them into the vertical industry as you speak, they have an honest-to-goodness mission at trying to make sure that veteran is taken care of. And not necessarily just a veteran. If you're
spouse,
somebody,
if you're supporting them,
if you're somebody that has just come out of college or somebody that has just come out of high school and you don't know which way to go and you're scared and you're unsure, there's a place to turn to.
100%.
There is not a dead end to that road. There is a fork in that road, and it can lead so many different positive ways. But they have to make that decision. But we also have to make sure that we offer them the chance to make that decision. So whether it be coming to work for my company, whether it be coming to work for yours, the possibilities are endless. It's not terminal.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that don't know what to do.
And don't be the one that says, no, it is terminal. I can't do this.
It's just
There's
the beginning.
no good in that.
It's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. Take what you have. Take what you've learned. Take what you've experienced. Make it a positive, right? If I was 20, 40 years ago, if I was that sailor that just said, screw it, I'm getting out of the Navy, see you later, hi, Aka, I'm out of here. I didn't have a data industry like yours. I didn't have an industry that could have offered me to fall into. Now it's different, right? Look at what's around us. Look at the technologies that are around us.
It all aggregates back to data centers. Every day, everybody that touches a cell phone touches a data center that I've probably built or had a part of.
That's what I offer to not just our veterans, primarily our veterans, but speaking to the public at large is, hey, don't think about the things you can't do and haven't done, but build in what you know and do what you can. That's what Dad taught me.
Listen,
that's not a hollow.
It's amazing. It's amazing that you're still taking me to school too, Master Chief. So it's an honor and privilege to have you here. Honestly, man, this is one of the most exciting podcasts I've had a chance to do. So I'm honored that you're here. I'm glad that I've got to have the opportunity to introduce you to so many of the members of my team because you've had a profound impact on me. I wouldn't be who I am without you.
Kirk, it was all you. I'm telling you. you managed to get yourself in trouble.
And you helped me
I
get out
managed
of it,
to
which is why.
get you out of it.
Which is why. Listen, man,
I love you.
I love you back. I learned a lot from you, and I'm just so grateful that you're here
I'm
and that
very
you get to
proud
share
of you.
your narrative. So thanks for everything you're doing, Master Chief, and I look forward to hanging out with you a little bit more tonight.
It was awesome.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.